think people in the market right now look at what's going on with Iran, looks at the attacks they've seen on the tankers, the pipeline attacks, and say, it's low level, nothing has been sunk, there's been no major supply disruption, it's all noise. And I look at the situation and say, we haven't seen these type of attacks in a while. We haven't had a situation where the Iranians they've now restarted their nuclear program. And so the really key thing to watch is they're basically doing low-level enrichment now. The question is, what happens on July 7th? They've given the Europeans a 60-day deadline to essentially provide some type of economic relief. If that is not forthcoming, the Iranians are likely to step up their nuclear activities. And I think that is when this is going to potentially really come to a head.
This is awkward for the Europeans, Hadley, because it's clear that the relationship between Iran and the U.S. is completely frayed. Europe was trying to keep this deal together, but now that it's falling apart and that Iran's increasing its enrichment, where does that leave them?
It's incredible, really, because you have Bruno Le Maire, of course, coming out and saying we are under pressure from both sides. The Iranians are demanding and setting deadlines that, of course, we can't fold to that. But at the same point, the United States is saying the same thing. And what's incredible to me is what's happened over the last 24 hours that, as you said yesterday, Helima, no one's really in the markets responding to, because what we heard from President Rouhani, he's essentially come out and said now he wants executive wartime powers.
Right.
Because he says it's an economic war that's being waged against Iran.
People, in economic war, maybe is the way to put it. So people have argued, Helima, well, Iran has no interest to stage an actual conflict because they'll lose, it will be terrible for the economy, et cetera. And they say that the interesting thing is how this comes down to President Trump, who everybody agrees, and it's always dangerous when everybody agrees, that he doesn't want a military conflict. So they say, hey, there's no way the president would get involved with something like that.
I would say this. Right after 9/11, when we were engaged in hostilities in Afghanistan, if you had said at that moment we'd be engaged in a war in Iraq 2 years later, people said that's probably not likely. President Bush had basically campaigned against nation building. He was not for Middle East entanglements. And so I do think that if you could have some type of escalation, it's sort of a fog of war situation. We're not actually really talking to the Iranians at this point. And so as we ratchet up severe economic pressure, really akin to economic warfare. I mean, today, Secretary of State Pompeo was talking about assisting the Iranian population. That can be read as regime change talk inside of Iran. So the question, if you're the Iranians and you're not getting a better offer from Washington in this moment, do you have every incentive to step up the pressure on Washington, on countries supporting sanctions, to try to get us to reconsider our position? As they ratchet up, we will have to respond. And you can get into a tit-for-tat escalation.
So how much oil are they producing right now?
Well, I mean, the Iranians...
And where is that going to? Are they likely to use... Is that some lever of influence?
The key thing to pay attention to is Iran was basically exporting around 2.5 million barrels a day a year ago. They are likely to be down to about 500,000 of exports. This is a significant sanction. We've imposed a whole host of other economic sanctions, including on the Revolutionary Guard. It's a huge drop. We are crushing their economy. So the idea that they're going to basically sit back, do nothing, the Iranians may not want to respond head on, but they will respond asymmetrically. That's how the Iranians have been waging their campaigns against the West, since the '79 revolution. And so expect, I would say, more issues around key waterways. Look for issues in terms of Iraq, potentially the eastern provinces of Saudi Arabia. I don't really see the Iranians having an incentive to back off that much.